Yo YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy SalvationsElite. We are back with another video, guys, and today we're talking about CWL Miami, the predictions, the preview, the bracket predictions basically for Miami. It's happening this weekend. I leave tomorrow actually for Miami, so obviously I'm pretty pumped for the tournament. It should be an awesome time. I've never been to Miami actually, so this will be my first time visiting the city. And if you guys are down there for the tournament, obviously hit me up, say hi, and say what's up. I love seeing and meeting you guys, so that'll definitely be awesome. So today, like I said, we're gonna go through kind of like a lot of the talking points of the playoffs and see what we can kind of expect moving forward into this weekend. So overall, first of all, of course, 100 Thieves. We're just gonna start off right away with the favorites and the power rankings and whatever it is, because we gotta get into the bracket and talk about some of those important matchups. So first of all, 100 Thieves 100% deserves to be the favorite. They've been frying, they've been dominating, they've won the last two tournaments, and they look like the absolute best team right now still. And so the odds right now with some of the betting sites, it only makes sense. They are heavy favorites to win this tournament, and basically no one is even close. So like, let's just imagine if they didn't exist, it would be insane. There'd be like, I don't know, 8 teams that could in theory win the tournament. But because 100 Thieves exists, in my mind, there's probably only 3 or 4 that really have a true chance. And then there's a few dark horses and wild cards that we have to talk about as well. So with that said, let's talk about one of the teams that could potentially, maybe, that's all I'm saying is maybe, have a chance to beat 100 Thieves, which is OpTic Gaming. On paper, they match up pretty well against 100 Thieves. The issue is that they've been having some role problems lately. Seems like they just can't decide on how they want to play as a squad when it comes to specialists and roles and who they want where. It seems like Karma and Crim both want to run ICRs, but that's just not what they need at this point. And someone needs to really suck it up and run the grapple and be that entry player. Been testing it out with TJ, but that hasn't necessarily been working. It doesn't seem like it fits him that well. It kind of feels like Scump needs to suck it up and just do it, but we don't know exactly what they're going to be like moving into this tournament yet officially. We've heard some rumors, but that's something we need to look for right away in their first match, is what their roles are, how that could potentially play out right away off the rip in their first match against either Heretics or the team that comes out of the qualifying bracket. Before we actually talk about the qualifying bracket and all these teams and the brackets in general, I want to touch on some of the wildcard teams that legitimately do have a shot to make a run in this tournament and make it to like the grand finals, maybe probably through the losers bracket, considering most everyone will have 100 Thieves being in the winners finals at least, if not the grand finals. So before we actually talk through the brackets, I kind of want to talk through my power rankings a little bit, kind of talk about who I think the best teams are at this tournament, and then we can talk about the wild cards and some of those guys who can make those runs. So of course, first of all, 100 Thieves absolutely is in their own tier. They're at the top. They're in tier 1 all by themselves at the #1 ranking. Then incredibly tight in the number 2, 3, and 4 rankings is EU, GenG, and OpTic. And legitimately, on any given day, any of those teams could be potentially the best team out of those 3. If you're going by like a tier ranking system, they're all in tier 2. If I had to rank them, I think I would go EU, OpTic, GenG. I know GenG just beat OpTic in LA and Los Angeles, or in Anaheim, I mean. But I think OpTic, just on paper, they still have more talent. They should be able to pull it together, but their team play just hasn't been there, man, the last few tournaments, the last few events. So we'll see. I'm going to just slightly, just a little bit, put OpTic above GenG, but that could easily be swapped. Obviously, they're pre-landing together right now in Texas, so OpTic, EU, FaZe, and GenG are all pre-landing together at the Hex quarters in Texas, which I think Hex has a live stream up on his Twitch channel. If you guys just want to like see it, there's no audio though. You can only like, it's like an overview of all the tables, so you can like see them, but you can't hear them, so it's pretty useless to watch for the most part. And like at the end of the day, I just don't put that much weight into the CWL matches that we just saw in crossplay. I mean, like specifically like with like a lot of the teams made changes, like Splice, LG, Envy. Like how much weight can you actually put into them? Like Splyce was playing off what, like 2 days of practice or whatever as a squad. Like, what are you gonna do? At the end of the day, for most of those teams, it basically didn't mean anything. We're really not gonna know until we see all of these teams on land. So again, after those top 4, I think you have FaZe, who's in their own tier 3. They're better than the rest of the teams, but they're just not there up in that, you know, those top 4 yet. So I'm gonna put them in their own tier 3. They're the 5th team. And then there's kind of a tier of wildcard teams that, just depending on how their rosters fill in and fit together and mesh these last 2 weeks, you know, this practice time before this tournament, any of them potentially could make a run to the grand finals. And that's the 3 teams of Splyce, Envy, and LG, Luminosity. So those 3 teams all are kind of in that next tier, the tier 4, and in those 6, 7, and 8 spots there, I'm like, okay, they have the talent on paper to be great, They have the players, they have the experience, they've played together, but can they really come together this quickly in a few weeks and be an elite team and make that run at the tournament? It's possible. It definitely is. And like, if they play well, all it takes is one match. If they play well, you know, FaZe could beat 100 Thieves, Envy could upset OpTic, Splyce could take out GenG. Like, there's so many potential options there, obviously. And so I think they're absolutely labeled as wild cards who could potentially make a run, but you can't, just logically, you just cannot slot them ahead of any of those teams that I said previously. I think the last team that we're going to talk about here is just Reciprocity. They're kind of in the next tier, where if things come together for them, again, they could make a run, but I don't see the potential, that high-end potential that Envy, Splyce, and LG have. So Rec is kind of in that next tier, right behind those guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run to like the losers semis, losers finals, but I would be beyond shocked if they were like, you know, in a grand final. So with that said, let's finally go through the brackets here. This is what I'm excited about, and we can talk about what teams I expect to kind of finish where and how this is fun. I mean, the fun of the CWL Miami Playoffs format is that we actually do have a bracket set from the beginning. So here you guys are seeing the play-in bracket, what we got, and this are my predictions for this play-in bracket. So we got Envy moving on over UYU. We got E6 moving on over EG. Then we got Midnight moving on over Elevate, and LG over Midnight, and Envy over E6. So both Envy and LG qualify for the championship bracket, which this is what then this would look like. This is the first round. I'm just going to kind of show you bits and pieces at a time, because obviously we want a little bit of drama for the rest of this video. But I think I'm going to go through to show you guys the bracket, and then we're going to go back and talk about some of the most important matches. All right. So in this first round, this is who I got moving on to play and fill into the next round. Here we go. So we got OpTic versus Envy. So I have Envy beating Heretics, and then I have Reciprocity actually beating LG. This is definitely a game that we're going to have to go back and talk about, because it could go either way. So we'll talk about that in a second. So then we got eUnited versus Rec. We got GenG versus Splyce. Again, this is where decisions get tough, but this is who I have going through. I have OpTic beating Envy. I have 100 Thieves beating FaZe. I got EU beating Rec. I got GenG beating Splyce. So we have kind of those top 4 teams now in the winners semifinals. So we have OpTic versus 100T, EU versus GenG. Then I have EU beating GenG and 100 Thieves once again beating OpTic. So we have 100 Thieves and eUnited in the winners finals. From there on, though, I have 100 Thieves beating eUnited. Shocker, shocker. I know, crazy. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? And heading to the grand finals. I'm not going to show that because that would show who I have in the grand finals. So now we have to slide all the way back to the losers bracket round 1. That pits Heretics versus FaZe and Splyce versus LG. And that sucks for Splyce and LG, first of all, because both those teams are, you know, powerhouses, big fan bases. They have great players on their squad, legitimate all-stars on their squad, and one of them is going to get eliminated real quick in this situation. So I have Splyce beating LG, and I have FaZe Clan beating Heretics. All right, so now that moves us into the next round, the winners round, or the losers round 2, and that's where we have Envy versus FaZe and Splyce versus Rec. Okay, so I got FaZe beating Envy, and I have Splyce beating Rec. I don't know how I feel about those. Are tough games. Those are really tough games, and we're going to talk about some of them again here in a second. So then in the losers quarterfinals, we have OpTic versus FaZe, which is an exciting one, and we have GenG versus Splyce, which is also an awesome match. So these, I mean, all these matches are going to be tons of fun, and I'm really excited to see. This tournament's going to be an awesome one, hopefully overall. And this one, I got OpTic beating FaZe. I know. And then I have GenG beating Splyce. Okay. So now we're down to OpTic versus GenG in the losers semifinals, and I have OpTic beating GenG. So now we're down to eUnited and OpTic in the losers finals, and I have OpTic headed to the grand finals. Finally, we get a finals where OpTic plays 100 Thieves, and shocker, I have 100 Thieves winning it all and taking home the 3rd straight title and a whole bunch of cash in their pockets. So obviously, there's a lot of huge games here. I mean, come on. Anything could potentially happen. I could be so wrong. Like, who knows? FaZe could end up in the freaking grand finals. Splyce could end up in the grand finals. LG could end up in the grand finals. Who knows? It's hard to say. But here are some of the games that I think are going to be like the most crucial matchups and the ones that are like probably the most 50-50 in these situations. So right off the rip in round 1, we have Rec and Luminosity. I think this game could absolutely go either way. Again, we don't know what Luminosity has to offer and how that could potentially look. I would love to see an EU versus Luminosity matchup in the second round, but I don't know if LG is going to come out shooting as well as they should be. Like, obviously, LG in the situation would be coming off playing a ton of matches already. They've already played, what, 4 matches in the qualifiers? So they would be warmed up, and in the situation, that is really interesting to me. But for some reason, I think Dylan Cod and his boys at Rec are going to be able to pull this one out and beat LG. Again, I would have no problem if somebody had LG going in the next round, but I think either way, I would have EU beating the team that comes out of this game and sending them back down in the losers bracket. So that is something where I totally understand if guys, you know, want to dispute that, but this is where I'm at. The next one in the winner's side would be the GenG Splyce match. I think that could easily go 50-50 either way. I think that's probably the closest match out of any of the other ones in that round for the winner's bracket, but I still think GenG should be a pretty decent favorite in that match. Again, it all comes down to what Splyce's roster looks like and how it comes out shooting. I mean, again, they could come out and be insane. They have the potential to be. They have the talent to be insane. I'm going to take the more steady, you know, safer pick in GenG in that round, even though Splyce does match up fairly well against them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came out insanely hot. So the final match that I could totally see going either way would be a GenG eUnited match in the winners semifinals. That would be a really, really fun match, and I think either team could take that one. Like I said, I have EU slightly favored in this one, but I am very tempted to take GenG, but I just think eUnited is going to pull that one out and then again lose to 100 Thieves, shocker, in the winners finals. So, and that brings it back down to that Splice Lg match, and this one's a complete toss-up to me. Either team could potentially win this one. Just like I have Splyce going into the losers round 3, easily LG could come back, beat Splyce, then have a rematch against Rec, and now they come back and beat them, and now they end up against GenG, and who knows at that point if LG or Splyce is frying. It's an interesting game for sure. So I'm giving Splyce the edge. I just think the SOG duos that Splyce have are just so much more talented at this point and more successful than LG's duo. That's where I'm hesitant to take LG and why I have Splyce moving forward. So then the last 2 rounds in losers, man, those could go either way, legitimately. GenG could end up in the finals, OpTic could end up in the finals, EU could end up in the finals. I would have no problem if anyone took those 3 teams. I think in my mind they are so close, it's so marginal, and it could just come down to a map, which map you end up playing. It could come down to 1v1 or a clutch or some type of search and destroy clutch in game 5. That could be the difference in those matches. And so that's why I'm hesitant to like go out on the limb and pick any of them like wholeheartedly, because I truly believe that they're all incredibly close. So that's why I have them circled as games that are incredibly interesting and should be really exciting to watch, because who knows what in the world could potentially happen with those guys. So I know this was a pretty long video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, going in depth for some of these predictions and the CWL Miami. It should be a lot of fun. And again, if you guys are down there, hit me up, say hi. I'll be around doing ref and stuff and working. So if you guys see me, say hi. Totally love seeing you guys. But as always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you guys really enjoyed it. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.